Welcome back. It's an unusually busy Friday on Capitol Hill. This morning, the House received its classified briefing on the U.S. strikes on Iran as questions continue to swirl about the status of Tehran's degraded nuclear program. House members are heading home for the weekend, but their Senate colleagues are not going anywhere anytime soon. Senate Republicans are still scrambling to put together their version of the president's mega bill after getting dealt a major blow from the parliamentarians striking down their provision on Medicaid. And it's still not clear when they'll begin voting on the massive package. But Senate Majority Leader Leader Thune now says he expects they'll be, quote, ready at some point tomorrow. And an administration official tells me that President Trump had been planning to go to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey this weekend, but instead will stay right here in D.C. to help get his one big beautiful bill across the finish line. Joining me now is Sahil Kapur on Capitol Hill, and NBC News national security reporter Gordon Lubold joins me on set. Thanks to both of you for being here. Sahil, I have to start with you. What's the state of play on the one big beautiful bill?
Well, Kristen, they're hoping to start voting tomorrow at noon. That is the goal for Senate Republican leaders, although the Majority Leader, Leader Thune, did admit that that timeline is aspirational. There are some Republican senators already a little bit confused about this, complaining about this, saying they haven't even seen the bill text. Senator Rand Paul joked to me that they're probably going to drop this massive bill right before they're being asked to vote. So the mood is certainly tense here because there are a lot of things that have to be resolved here. There's still concerns about the scope of the Medicaid cuts. There are clashes happening between Republican senators and Republican House members about the scope of clean energy cuts, and there's some optimism that they're getting to a resolution on the state and local deduction. That's the SALT cap that certain blue state Republicans are pretty fired up about. So at the end of the day, Kristen, the way I look at it is the question is not which Republicans are going to vote yes on this. The question is which Republicans are willing to vote no and take down the centerpiece of President Trump's agenda. That is the ace in the hole that Republican leaders in both chambers are looking at. Some factions of Republicans are going to get rolled. Not everyone's going to get what they want. But are there 4 Republicans in either chamber? Because that's the margin they need to take down the bill. 4 Republicans willing to block President Trump's agenda and take the heat for it from the MAGA base. I remain skeptical.
Well, and I know you're bracing for a long weekend, Sahil. Walk me through the other actions that the parliamentarian took, stripping some of the other provisions in the Senate bill. What were they?
Yeah, there's a lot that the Senate parliamentarian has invalidated from this process because, remember, everything has to be primarily budgetary in nature to bypass the 60-vote threshold, and the parliamentarian is the Senate referee that decides what qualifies and what doesn't. With that said, take a look at some of the recent provisions the parliamentarian has said do not qualify. Caps on the Medicaid provider tax that's used to fund the program in states. That's a major loss for Republicans because there were a lot of savings there. Private school vouchers, carve-outs for religious colleges from the endowment tax, deregulation of gun silencers, new rules on the earned income tax credit, also stripped out in the last 24 hours, new limits on student loan repayments, and just today, immigration fees on asylum and visas. These were all provisions that the parliamentarian deemed were policy in nature and not budgetary, Kristen.
Well, Sahil, let me shift to another topic that I know you are tracking there on Capitol Hill as you continue to watch the debate over the big, beautiful bill. The House got its classified briefing on Iran today. What came out of that? What are we learning?
It doesn't really seem to have moved any lawmakers off their previous positions, Kristen. You see Republicans largely standing by President Trump's decision to launch those strikes in Iran, defending his claim that Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. Democrats are much more skeptical. And of course, we're flying blind here because this was a classified briefing and we don't have the information in front of us to verify who's correct and who isn't. Take a listen to what Democratic Congressman Jim Himes said about his view on it.
So, there's a lot of very sloppy adjectives like obliterated being used here, and it's still too early to tell. I think it's pretty clear that there was no imminent threat to the United States. There's always an Iranian threat to the world, but I have not seen anything to suggest that the threat from the Iranians was radically different last Saturday than it was 2 Saturdays ago.
And yesterday, after the Senate briefing, Kristen, Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina Republican, told me that additional U.S. military strikes need to be on the table if Iran tries to rebuild the nuclear program.
Whew. All right. Well, you actually set me up perfectly for my first question to Gordon. Sahil, thank you so much. Hope you have your sneakers on for this weekend. Gordon, let me start with you right there. Lindsey Graham is saying you can't take more strikes off the table. And in fact, President Trump, who called that impromptu news conference today, did not take more strikes against Iran. off the table. He was asked if he deems it necessary. He said yes, of course he'd be willing to do that.
He went right to that. I think what is significant about that, of course, is the pushback from the president and his administration the last couple of days after the initial strikes from last weekend, and then that initial intelligence report that many of us wrote about, including NBC News, saying that maybe it wasn't as effective as the president had stated. The obliterated line is probably the most problematic. And so it's interesting that now the president is saying, like, he's potentially looking at, or at least not ruling out, more strikes for these, potentially these very same sites, or another site which where the Iranians may have moved some of the enriched uranium.
So that's one of the big questions. Did they move the enriched uranium? How much? President Trump addressing some of that today. Take a look. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Time will tell, but I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear anytime soon. They spent over $1 trillion on nuclear, and they never got it together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way.
What's the reality check there?
I mean, Secretary of Defense yesterday during this kind of tense press briefing was saying himself, like, there's no evidence of anything being moved. I think time will tell, as the president says there, that they may find that they do need to go back in. But the president still wants to make a deal and would like to kind of end this whole thing. I just think that him kind of saying already now, just days after those initial strikes that were supposed to be so effective, that he might need to go back in, sounds like he's doing the spade work publicly to kind of suggest that maybe he will do that.
All right, Gordon Lubold and Sahil Kapur, thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.